Oh, that's where that.
I'm good.
Are you alone?
That's where the talk show is.
Can I send you a picture?
Girl on
Okay, she
phone.
loves her mom and dad and Johnny Cash. Keeps her Betty blue eyes under a big black hat. She was born in Canoga Park, calls it LA. Tells me the dirtiest things and knows I like it that way. She told me you can touch me anywhere you want before she saw me face to face, naked in Times New Roman font.
What would you say if I told you I wasn't wearing anything?
I had to tell you to come over.
But you respect me, right?
I think you're great.
I'm on my way.
In our generation, dressed up and super sedated, yeah. So what? We got information. What's up? In our generation, on a perma vacation, yeah. Got no
Think you got a little compression going on there?
destination. The monsters come out at night.
So you think we got a little compression on that one
Yeah,
channel?
that's finally starting to sound like something. What's on the mix bus, man? That was looking pretty good. How many of you out there use the IK Multimedia plugins? Cordo in the front row. Okay, you're in the right room then. Okay, because if you follow me around, you're in the wrong room. Now you're in the right room. So let's just check this out. Okay.
So this is one of my personal faves on the in the T-RackS 5. This is the T-RackS 5 1 plugin, which I use on my on the stereo mix. Again, this gives you the ability, to one, add a nice compression to your overall mix, to also EQ it. You have the air, which is your top end, your mid-range, which is your focus, the body is your bottom end. And then again, the push would be the amount of compression that you're using. This is how you get your mix really loud.
So let's show them how far you can go and if we max out these knobs back and forth. Because the mix sounds really punchy, really in your face. Let's see if we go the wrong way and the right way and see what happens. There you go. Save the setting now. There's your start point. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, we're going to copy the setting so that we can get back to that. So we're going to play once again from the top. Here we go. So now, if I just go, let's just go and really get. So this is actually taking compression off.
Wow.
Okay. So
That really deflated my,
and it actually sounds a
wood.
little bit flat now.
Keeps her Betty blue eyes under a big black hat. She was born in
Okay,
Canoga
that's getting sexy.
So now we get into where we're hitting some compression in there. We can add a little more top end to it. See, of course, because we're behind the speakers, I'm going to add
the
top
air,
end.
yeah.
But the cool thing is, one of the things I really like about this particular plugin is I love the width button. So again, as it gets into the chorus here, I'm going to make it wider. I'm going to pull the sides up.
Give me the wide. Give me the wide. Ooh, that's max wide.
And again, you can hear it adds a lot of width.
Okay.
Or you can take the width away and make your mix mono.
Whoa, that's not
Left wide.
boring. Okay. Whoa.
And then again, if you wanted to add a bit more of the transients back into the mix. So that's if you really take it to the far end. But yeah, it's just
Now, what about the focus? Is that like a hocus pocus thing? What is
hocus
that?
pocus. Here you go.
Hello?
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So you focus in air, kind of sharpen it, right? And what about the old body? What does the body do?
Johnny Cash keeps her Betty blue
Okay.
eyes.
Give me
It
the
takes the
body.
clothes
Big
off your
black
mix.
hat. She was born in Canoga Park. Calls it
Whoa.
LA. Tells me the dirtiest things and knows I like it that
Whoa.
way.
Now try the bass punch. What does that
Told
do?
me you can touch me anywhere you want before she saw me face to face, naked.
Whoa,
That gives us some more.
holy Thunderfoot. Let go there. Batman.
Tell you to come over.
Analog, wow.
I think you're
As
great.
you can see, I was using quite a bit of piano.
Oh, I see, the limiter. Wow, you guys hearing a difference back there? I know I am. When I'm so old that my ears are pretty much running at half mast. So, you guys hear a difference? You're laughing, aren't you? You think I'm funny? You like it, right? Well, I'm glad you came in, right? Because you're going to get entertained big time because I make a lot of jokes. Cordo, you use these things, right? It makes a pretty big difference, doesn't it? So the bus compressor can make, believe it or not, you can take a really simple balance and the bus compressor can supercharge it, you know, just that whole picture of the record. So that's pretty cool. I got to actually do the drive-through on that, you know. So I got the double-double on that thing, a full drive-through. So let's go to the go-to vocal limiter that you use on this mix, Mr. TLA. What's all that racket out there? Is that NAMM?
They got some PA set up next.
Is that Nambience? You ever heard that before? See, that's Nambience. Marissa, I love your laugh. All that racket, Nambience. Well, then you're going to get the NAMM when you go home on Monday. Whoa. So be
Right,
careful.
so on this one, I'm actually going to move over to the drums.
Ooh, okay, cool.
Okay? Because I'm not going to lie to you. On this one, I put the spanked vocal in the session, and I use the IK multimedia plugins more on my drum set, my bass, and guitars.
Let's see what the EQ does.
Because I love this 1073 plugin, so I have this one on the bass drum.
I mean, everyone's got to use the 73. What's wrong with 69 or 52 or something? You know, it's like everyone hung up on this. Whoa, there's a Sharpie.
So again, on this particular one, I was just adding, and again, if we pull this out, we're just adding just a little bit of punch, but it's a really nice recreation of this 1073. The one thing that I really like about the T-RackS 5 plugins is the ability to do mid-side EQing or compression on it. So again, I'm just going to bounce around a little bit because I want to show off some of the cool features of the stuff, what I really like about these plugins. First of all, sonically, they're amazing sounding plugins. But some of the features that aren't available in other plugins that I really like is the ability to manipulate the mid-side separately.
What about the GUI stretching?
Well,
you know what a GUI is?
For us blind guys, let me get down here, but for us blind guys, the GUI stretching. So the T-RackS 5 allows you to just take the corner of your plug-in here, and for the blind guys here to do this to it. And all of a sudden now, you
That's
have
pretty cool, right?
This big giant plug-in.
Guess what? That's the only plugin that does that. And, you know, I make plugins for other companies, and I can't do that. They can do that here. That's really helpful because you can make it whatever size you want. You can put a few up on the screen. You guys use the IK multimedia stuff yet? You do? That's why you're hanging out by the door? Plus all the boys were walking by and checking you out? I knew that.
So again, on this particular channel, I'm using the EQ81, again, which is something because I don't have the hardware version of this. So I really do enjoy using this particular one because I've always wanted to have one and I don't, but now I do. And this particular one allows me to manipulate the mid, so actually, am I doing that one in the mid sides on this one? This one allows me to manipulate the mid sides separately. So again, if I wanted to take this particular sound and EQ the sides separately, I would again just hit the MS button, hit the sides, and again, what I could do is adjust the level to make it wider, or to make it very louder. And again, this becomes particularly effective on synthesizer bass. Is something that I use all the time on a stereo synthesizer bass. You know, what do you do when you have a stereo synthesizer bass and the bottom end is going left and right? You know, and you never really have that solid foundation. Well, with this, what you can do, what you would do on a synthesizer bass, you would use it in mid-side mode, roll the bottom end off the sides, and then flip it over to the mid mode here so that it's just doing the center, and carve in the EQ that you wanted so that you have that nice, tight, tubby bottom end on the bass. So it works very well on a synthesizer bass, or to be quite honest, on anything that's stereo, to add just a little bit of width to it, or more width, or again, I just love experimenting with it because sometimes I'll take guitars and just move them out, you know, of left, right a little bit to get them a little bit wider, you know, to have them pull out of the mix a little bit. It's very helpful for that. The other thing that I use quite a bit on these is the British channel, and again, this is something that emulates the console that I use, so it's immediately familiar. And you can see on the snare drum channel, you know, I'm not adding much EQ at small, just a small amount, 15 dB.
Yeah.
At 7K.
That's my favorite number.
But also on this, because I'm so familiar with this, I really enjoy using the British channel. I know what it sounds like, and the IK version I really like. It's true to what I'm using. But what I like is it gives you the ability to use black knob or brown knob. If I hit this button here, we flip over to the brown knob, which is just another generation of the EQ that I use on my console.
All right. So both Tom and Chris Lord-Alge, it's rare that two brothers are multi-Grammy winning engineers in the family here, but they've been doing it a long time, worked on a lot of hit records, and you both have killer studios, and you both have SSL consoles in your studio, correct?
That is correct.
And so which series do you have, with the brown or the black?
I have black.
You have the black. And you have the black as well? Okay. And so now one of the things that I like about this, of course, you're saying if you're using a plugin, you're familiar with it, and if you're in a situation where you had to do something in the box or you wanted total recall or whatever, you would go to this because you're familiar with it. That's what console you use. And of course, one of the things that I like, because I don't have an SSL, and many of us don't have an SSL, is that if you want to get a mix that has some of the flavor of mixes like that you guys would do on an SSL, this is a way to get closer to that sound.
Correct.
Right, and you have this actually the British channel, which is a model of the E series, on a lot of channels. So I do that as well, and that gives it the sound of like a console would be. So you think of it like you don't have to change effects every time on every channel. You can actually just think of it like, well, this is a console, so I'm going to have this. And then sometimes you can bring in a Neve or something else. It's like you have a super console.
Correct. Hey, there we go.
Hello.
So
Hello.
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 You're not going with it. Okay.
Spinal Tap. So since we're on that subject, let me ask you guys, because I know you have different workflows and stuff.
Sorry.
And so you basically, so I know your workflow more than, I've worked with both Tom and Chris on my band in Continuum. Thanks, guys. It was awesome working with you, and I've learned a lot. And but I've noticed that you have different approaches to things. Chris, you've got that amazing rack, and you have preset settings with actual hardware, which we all wish we had, of course. And
Well, we don't have it because Chris owns it all.
yes, exactly. And then what you do, you use the console a little bit more like a summing mixer, right?
Correct.
And so you do a lot of the pre-effects and things like that, processing in the computer, and then you use the mix bus and the channels.
Yeah, I mean,
and
like pretty much
dynamics
like
and things.
99% of what I'm doing is plug-in based, but it sums out through the console.
Mm-hmm.
So I hit my console and I hit the sweet spot of the console. So for me, my Pro Tools rig is like a tape machine on steroids. So I'm able to get in there and dig in and do all the work that I really want to do in a very precision type manner.
Mm-hmm.
But when I bring it into my console, I bring it into my console to hit the sweet spot to achieve that the beauty of it running through an analog summing amp.
Okay. And Chris, you work with a variety of plugins, and you also make plugins with Waves. And how do you use plugins versus the analog? Do you use like a combination, and what's the ratio for you?
Well, here's the combination I use. It's real simple. I know the limitations of what the desk can give me and my outboard gear can give me. So I know how to preload that. So that means in my session, I use plugins to actually get the sound extremely close to what I want, and then let the console be the finisher. So they use the EQ on the console as a finishing, and if I have compressors plugged in, I know they're going to do a certain thing. For example, on an older SSL, there's a good chance the EQs aren't going to match channel to channel. So if you want to EQ guitars, you use a plugin, add your 15 dB at 8K or whatever it's going to be, and that gives you a head start. Then the console's more a finisher. So you're not letting, it's only doing the lightweight lifting. Let me look at it. It's like it's got bad knees, so it can only lift the light stuff. So you actually want to put more weight on the plugins and let the plugins be the scientific stuff. When you're removing problems, editing out problems. So it's a lot of times to move the tracks more forward, I'll use plugins. Compressors, limiters, and EQ, and the console and the outboard gear is the finisher when it was my only thing. So now I'm able to go further.
Right.
The stretchable GUI, is a super amazing feature in this situation.
It's awesome.
It really is. Oh wait, look how small is it? What's the smallest it goes? Does it go super small? Yeah, so you can put 4 of those on the screen.
You can,
but,
yes.
but you can just zip it. You zip it wide, and then you can easily grasp. And that's a problem with a lot of plugins. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of the plugins you open on your small little laptops, your iPads, or whatever, you can't see the parameters.
Right.
We're here just boom, full
I got
screen.
my glasses.
Full screen it. Well, what happened there? Full
No, that's
screen
why
it.
I have my glasses right here, because I can't see it on the laptop.
Yeah, yeah.
But with these with the goo, with the adjustable goo, now all of a sudden, well, there you go. How you doing, EQP1A? Nice to see you.
How you
I've
doing?
missed you.
How you doing?
You had one of the tape emulations. So there's a new software package for T-RackS called Tape Machines
Yep.
with a variety of 24-track, 2-track emulations. And Tom, you're a big fan of those. Why don't you tell us about that?
Just
and how
walk
you
a
use
little
it?
bit through that.
I love these plugins. I mean, there's a number
Does
of
it
reasons
sound
why.
really bassy out there? It does? Hey, can you just take some of the bottom
Thank you-
off?
thank
this?
you, Durga.
Make it a little brighter. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Well, not completely. Come on.
But what I love about
is that
the,
better? Is that a little bit better for you? Okay. A little clear. Check, check. 1, 2. How
Hey.
about Tommy? Whoa.
See now,
What the fuck is
not
that?
so close to the mouth anymore,
Wow,
is it?
that's some ambience if I ever heard it. Is that a rhino? Is that a stampede? Is there like a demo room next door? Holy, wow.
Bass demo room.
The
Jesus.
tape machine
Is
plugins.
that
I love the
fucking
tape
Dr.
machine.
Dre's next
LD.
door.
They got like a PA set up next door.
Like Dr. Dre next door. That fucking guy's deaf, man. Woo. Here we go. What do we got with the tape
No, but I
machines?
love the tape machine plugins. You know, there's a variety of the tape machine plugins, and again, what I use them for for saturation, and depending on the amount of saturation or the type of saturation will depend on the tape machine I'm using. This particular one would be like a 1/4-inch tape machine that I could either run at 15 or 7.5. So on this particular thing, I'm looking for more of a saturation, and I was using this on a chorus snare drum. And again, what I'm doing is using it to saturate, to pull away the transients. So in the old days when we were recording on analog, all the gear was actually set up to recover transients. Because of the inherent nature of analog recording, you lost the transients when you printed it to analog tape. So when we're mixing, all the outboard gear was really set up for a slightly slower attack to recover some of that transients. And now what we've done with modern recording and digital audio workstations is the exact opposite. Now we're trying to remove transients in the recordings or in the mixing process, and this is done through a variety of tape simulation or saturation plugins. So what I really enjoy about doing about the T-RackS ones is the variety of them. So you have this one here, which is a 1/4-inch machine, which on this particular mix I'm just using on a snare drum. And then if you go through them, you have others as well, which would be, here's the one that would emulate a 24-channel tape machine. You know, it's more like this would be used, you know, again, to add saturation. But what I do a lot with these is I actually get in there and manipulate the calibration mode of it and turn it into effect. So on this particular song, I probably did it on the guitar track down here, I believe. And I'm going to scroll down there so I can show that to you and play that to you, A, being what I was actually doing it for. And here it is right here. So on this, I was looking, let's see. Yes, I'm getting into the level and kind of getting it to grind a little bit. Whoops. First day with the new hands. And of course, I don't know why this bass drum is still soloed. First day with the new hands. I don't see it. Oh, here we go. There it is. It's an isolate. Not anymore, it's not. So again, getting back to the saturation on the guitars. Let me just find the one that I was using it on. I believe it's the chorus guitar here. Here we go. So on this chorus guitar here, I was screwing around with the bias control. And what the bias control just is, it just changes the pretty much the top end frequency on the record side. So it adds more saturation. So again, if I take this and just turn this plug-in off, and then you turn it on. So what it's doing, what I'm trying to achieve here is I'm trying to take out some of the attack, but I'm also trying to turn it into something just to give it a little bit more vibe. And for my ear, what I was going for was just add just a touch of a little bit of distortion, right? And I was able to achieve that in this plugin, again, by messing around with the bias. I'm going to show it to you. And you can also see on the settings here, I have the input whacked all the way up, again. So I want that saturation to be thick, right? And then I bring the makeup or the output of it down. And then by adjusting the bias here, you can see it's changing the top end and if I just go over a little bit, it kind of gets a little fuzzy, and then I just dial it back a little bit. So one of the things that I really loved about this, or what I really love about this plugin, is the ability to manipulate the calibration, or what would have been the calibration of the tape machine. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking and having it hit the tape machine harder, and adjusting the bias so that the top end gets a little funny, and then redoing it back on the way out. So you can actually see I'm adding bottom end back to the playback side. It gets very technical, but the cool thing is the knobs are there, and I just pretty much just turn them until they do, until I get the sound I'm trying to achieve. So for instance, if I wanted to thicken this up, I would just go in here and just bring up the low frequency EQ on the playback side. And I would do the same if I wanted to brighten it up on the playback side. But the cool thing is by doing it on the record side, you're EQing it into the saturation, which is quite cool.
But what I like about that is that, and this just shows a good example of how you can use any of these effects and get creative with it. So like, for instance, it's not necessarily specifically designed to turn the input all the way up and the output all the way down.
Well, why not? That's what we do. But why we try to break it.
That's what I think is inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, but for me, it's like, I really just use my ears. And so in other words, when I was here, heard that guitar, I'm like, what if I just got it to kind of flatten it out a little bit and almost make it like, again, what I was hearing is like, what if I just overdrove it into an analog tape machine? So that's when I thought, oh, well, let me put the IK in, because the IK tape machines sound really good, and they allow me the creativity and the flexibility to manipulate the audio. And again, if I really wanted to make it even flatter, you know what I mean? Well, I am running at 15 up, so there you go. So changing the tape machine also is going to change, the tape speed is going to change the amount of saturation. And then again, you can screw around with the tape type. You got GP 949, 456, and 250. And the other thing that's kind of cool is when you do have it up there, once you've gotten your sound, it's just so cool to watch the reels move around. And then
exactly.
if you can change the color of the reel by changing the tape. Look, it's the little things that
Did it change the color of the reel?
Well, yeah, there you go. So there's your 250, right? And if I go to 456, there's your 456 reel.
Oh yeah.
Here's your 499, right? And then you go to old GP9. Boom.
Yeah, oh yeah. How you doing?
So and that works on all that works on all the T-RackS 5 tape simulation plugins.
So
again, I find them very handy, especially in removing like spiky snare drums or anything that you want to just kind of remove the transients a little bit. Now, again, kids, don't try this at home. Okay, I'm very aggressive with how I handle the inputs and outputs, and it's just kind of my style of mixing. And Chris and I are always like.
So here's a question. Not to cut you off. Can we hear the tape can we hear your tape emulation on the mix bus? Can we hear you play the song through the tape machine? What if we just bypass the IK1 and just use one of the tape machines? Let me see how you can turn your mix into an AM radio. I mean, show us how much saturation, right? Let's see a little whiz bang. Is that possible?
Yeah. Let's
I'm
do it.
I'm just wondering,
anything's possible. We're working on a computer here. We're working with IK plugins, and anything is possible. Yeah. I love it.
So
my brother put me
on
the spot.
How many of you have the IK iLouds? Anybody? Aren't they pretty awesome? So I always come home, my iLouds are in front of my screen, and I plug my laptop into a remote Thunderbolt screen. So I have the iLouds directly in front of that, and that's such a great judgment, those speakers, because they're so compact, but it's just the curve of those is so nice to check mixes on. So I really depend on those. And the pairs you've given me, I already given away, so I already have those. So I already have people going, dude, those things are so good, because I say, look, set them up at home, use them as your laptop monitors, but so good to judge mixes on. Because it's, and I don't, there we go, I don't give compliments that often, but I've now depended on these now, so I'm now taking them with me everywhere. So Check them out. They're really good. I know they make an MTM, which is a beefier model, but these are just really good. The top end really gives you a great balance on what you're hearing. So let's just see what the tape machine does.
Right. So if we just put the tape
Yeah,
machine in.
456,
Right,
which
so-
for anybody who doesn't know, that's the older version.
So here we are. I'm running it at 15 IPS, 456. Right? So let's just see if we just. So again, we're not hitting it that hard. So let's just start to hit it a little bit. So when I do that, first I want to get it so that I don't blow you guys out of the water with volume. Because again, as I turn the input up, it's going to hit the tape machine harder. And as you can hear, it just starts to add that nice tape machine saturation. And then again, if I wanted to saturate,
Look at crank that shit.
let me know when we break it, Chris.
Oops, what happened? Oh, there you go.
Is it starting to get ugly?
So make it as bright as you can make it.
And a see-through shirt. She
That's
smells
pretty
like
cool.
cocaine and
Well, no, I can
sex.
go a
Looks
whole
like
nother
heaven.
level, but I
No,
can hear
I'm-
from the backside here that top end is starting to spit a little bit.
But I'm like on the way in, what happens is you're EQing into the
the
effect.
saturation.
That's what I was digging, because then it smears it like tape does.
Correct. And then if you wanted to do some finishing, some finishing work on it, you just EQ the playback side or
Yeah,
the play
just-
side, right? So here we go.
Are you alone?
Yeah.
So that's kind of doing it after it's hitting the smear mode.
So did you meet the girl that's talking on the phone at all? or-
Keeps her Betty Blue.
Who do you think she was talking to?
Oh, okay. She do. All right. See, there you go. I
But-
keep hearing her like, what does she look like, right? Anyway, so the smear effect, I'm digging on that as see what happens if you run your mix through the tape. You're getting the good effect of it without the hiss. So you're actually getting the what happens is the transient elimination. You're getting the top end smear, and it's a sound searching. Source searching. Wow. Soul searching. Source detect. Here we go. There we are. Okay, so is there another tape machine that
There
saturates?
are other tape machines.
Do you have
my
any that do
brother.
like 3 3/4, like slower speeds?
You
And
have-
while he's pulling it up, let me ask: do you have any analog tape machines left in your studio? that
Yes,
you
I
use?
do. Many of them. So I have 1/4-inch machines that I run mixes through. I have a 1/2-inch machine. I have multi-track machines. I mean, I think when I play mixes through the 1/4-inch machine, which is 7.5 IPS quarter track.
like this one right here.
There you go. How
Does
you
it
doing?
look like this?
Well, no, it's a Pioneer 707. So that's a 440. That's an Ampex 440 right there. You didn't do a 707. No.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't think so.
check it out. Let's see what this one does. So does this go slower?
Yes, of course it does.
What's the slowest speed?
Well, this one only goes down to 7.5.
Oh, cool. Oh, fail.
So again, remember, I've turned the volume down so not to kill you guys
Yeah.
out there.
Are you alone?
Yeah.
So right there, it's pretty cool.
Okay, she loves her mom and dad.
So again,
Try
but
the
that's
456.
I'm running it at the level, like basically if I was running the tape machine, that would be the level I'd be wanting to hit the tape machine at.
Try
Calls
456.
it LA, tells me the dirtiest things and knows I like it that way. She told me you can
Right,
touch
and then we go
me
down to,
anywhere you want before
hello,
she
how are
saw
you?
me face to face, naked in Times New Roman fine.
What would you say if I told you I wasn't wearing anything?
I had to tell you to come over.
And each tape has a little bit of a different
Think you're
song.
great.
And then we go down to the 250.
No generation,
And again, if we saturate into it,
super sedated, yeah. We got information.
but yeah, I mean, it's just, I find the tape machines, again, to be very useful, especially in stuff that's very spiky, but not only that, but just for experimentation, to try, again, I always try to do stuff that's slightly different than what everybody else is doing. So when it comes to saturation, I mean, we all know what everybody's using, so I'm trying to come up with a different sound of saturation, something that's unique to my mixes, so that my mixes stand out from everybody else's. And luckily, my mixes do.
We're just unique because we're the best at what we do, so fuck them.
One of the things that I always see it from my perspective, this sort of person on a budget studio, which many of us have studios in our home or whatever, and we don't have all these. That's why I like to ask, Chris and Tom, like, well, what do you have in the studio? So Chris and I've been to Chris's studio, and I've seen an amazing collection of analog gear and all that kind of stuff. And of course, he can use that. He was saying he runs it through the 4-track or the 2-track, and to get certain things. But probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would run it through it, but you wouldn't necessarily get the screwdriver out and start messing with it, and doing putting on different tape. But it takes too much work. So what's cool, the duality, from my perspective, is like, okay, on the one hand, if you don't have all those tape machines in your studio, this is a great way to kind of get some of the benefit that someone like Chris would have having that stuff. It's like, all right, you have now analog tape machines emulated to do that. But then what like Tom is doing is saying, okay, but use it as like we also have saturation plugins that are just saturation plugins, which you like and use a lot as well. Mm-hmm. But this is like, to him, another creative saturation plugin, or even an EQ or a fuzz. And it can be all those things. So it's a creative tool, and then it's also replicating something in hardware at the same time.
Well, the thing we're trying to show is that you can have your laptop, you can load it up with the iCase, and there's so many varieties that no one's ever going to have the crazy gear that we've collected, because we're hundreds of years old at this point. But you guys are all young, and you're doing this on a budget in a small footprint. So imagine a laptop with some iLouds, loaded with the plugins. You're rocking. So do you have a multi-track tape plugin too? Does it show as a multi-track?
There is a multi-track tape
multi-track is a smaller footprint on tape sonically, right? So
correct.
I just wanted a little tour, through the world of the tape machines.
Through the world of the tape machines, we have Tape Machine 24, which would be your 24-channel machine.
Okay, so it looks right. It looks similar.
It looks right.
Got it.
And again, got the features of all the others. And if we run that through, here, let's go to. That's actually, we've been listening to the same part of the song. Let's move down to the second verse. So again,
all the boys and the girls are out sleepwalking.
On the stereo
She's
box.
got her highest heels on.
So this is the 24 track. And again, it gives you the ability, the same ability of the other ones to change the tape.
Looks like heaven.
EQ into the saturation, EQ on the playback side.
See, to me, that is now completely different. And I'm going to explain why, because I don't think anybody in this room knows why, okay? Does anyone know the difference between what that would do and the other one? Me. Okay, go ahead, Tom. 24 track is on 2-inch tape. So that means you have 24 tracks that have to fit onto 2 inches of tape. Okay? So if we were using, let's say we're mixing down, Chris and I used to mix down to 1/2-inch tape. It was only 2 tracks. That means there's a 1/4 inch per track of the magnetic tape used for each side of the audio. On 24 track, you have to fit 24 tracks on 2 inches of tape. That means that's less of 1/10 of an inch of real estate. It's 1/8 of an inch of real estate per channel. Is it 1/8 inch or a 12th or something, right? Is it like 24?
It's an 1/8 of.
Oh, yeah. It's
an 1/8 of an inch per channel of audio.
Wouldn't it be a 12th? 2-inch divided by 24 is a 12th.
I said it was a 12th.
Exactly. So I would just.
It's a 1/12 of an inch.
I think he has his plug-in
all my
on
life. All my life, girls have told me this is 8 inches.
Anyway.
So I was going with 1/8 of an inch, but it's actually it's smaller than that.
Yeah, I knew that.
My apologies. We'll edit that part out.
So it's live.
So I know the answer to that question. I do know the answer to that
Tom,
question.
What do you think? So
it's a 1/12 of an inch
versus
1/2-inch tape, which would be 1/4 of an inch.
So it's a 1/4 versus a 12th. So it's like 1/4 the
amount of real estate or the amount of magnetic tape. So
what's going to happen when it's that less of real estate? It's going to kick right into saturation.
Correct.
4 times quicker.
Correct.
Got it.
So therefore,
3 times quicker. Right? Yeah. 4, 12. Yeah, that kind of thing. Right. It's 3 times.
We already made a blunder with the math, bro.
Yeah. Got it.
We should probably move on.
Okay. Now, what if you put a straight saturation plug-in on the mix bus? Does it get really gnarly? What does it do? Right? Don't you guys want to check that out? Have you ever tried just using a saturation plug-in on the mix bus? Is it like...
No. Here we go.
Let's just check it out, right?
So here we go.
So is it just...
This is the Saturation X.
So
here we go. And this also has tape on it.
Whoa, look at those lights. Whoa!
Yeah, you can get this to make it really ugly. See, but again, the cool thing with this, so let's just do it to the sides. You can get in here and just mangle it. you know, again, look, what I'm doing here, you know, how I'm doing it here is being ultra super aggressive with it.
So give me the GUI. Let's see the GUI full screen because I can't even read what the modes are. Sorry, I'm old. Can you guys see the mode names?
Here we go.
No? Can you see?
Yeah, well,
There we
you know, I
are.
can make it full screen. Check that out.
That's
Right? So you got your tape 1, you got your tape 2, you got your +6 tape. So these are different calibration levels. So obviously a +12 is going to be more of a saturation because you're hitting the tape at a louder level. Okay?
How about the brick wall button? Let's see what that does.
Yeah, how you doing? Right? And then if you turn the gain up, let's get it.
Oh my God, I'm getting happy.
Yeah, it just, whoa.
Wow.
It starts to get a little, you know.
It starts to sound like our competition, doesn't it? Anyway, you know, I've heard stuff like that come from mastering. But you know the thing about that you may want to be a little subtler, but what it is saturation, tape saturation, compression. They're kind of all in the same flavor group. You know what I'm saying? So when you're loading up your fridge, it's all in the dairy section, right? It's butter, cheese, eggs, right? So they do a bit different thing, but this can take something that's really peaky and put a nice char on it. You know what I'm saying? This is almost when you char a steak, it puts the burn on it. So, you know, it just try things we've never tried. So we're just trying to show you that it's not all about hey, if it says vocal, put it on the vocals, right? I got people say, hey, I use guitar plugins on vocals. I use saturation on mixes.
Right, that's kind of what it's all about being creative. And to be quite honest, it's just about using your imagination. And Chris and I have actually made a career out of, you know, doing things that's not supposed to be done. So yeah. Put a guitar plug-in on a vocal. Sounds awesome.
Well, actually, speaking of that, so besides T-RackS, which is you know, the outboard gear that you find in a studio, we also make, IK Multimedia makes AmpliTube, which is typically thought of for guitars because it's guitar amps and stomp boxes and all that. But it's equally useful for mixing engineers, and you've used it in this track, right? So tell us about how you used it.
This was one of my secret weapons, but now that I've been giving it away, telling what I'm doing with it. So this is the AmpliTube plugin. Come on, this one the goo does not get bigger. It's easy.
Why not? Oh, so if you don't see the pull corner, right? So Dave, if you don't see the pull corner,
If you don't see the pull quarter,
Yeah,
well,
no-
I'm
no
so
pull
used
corner.
to them not stretching.
Yeah, you're getting spoiled now.
yep, we
Well,
spoiled Chris.
most of the IK plugins, the new ones, are doing it. I don't know. The developers here, you can ask when.
Well, what
AmpliTube
happens is
So-
if the GUI's complicated in the graphics department, you can't stretch it. And see, you have that little metal lead thing. That's what hosed them on this one. Anyway,
Right. So on this particular track in the choruses, I wanted to, you know, first of all, the bass has a good little growl to it. So let's just listen to the bass as it was. You know, it's got a nice bit of a bite to it already. It's got a little bit of distortion on it, but that was not enough. So what I did on this particular track is I literally dropped the bass down to another channel just below it and put in the AmpliTube plugin, which I love. I have presets of this set up. And to be quite honest, this one here is just a stomp box plugin. That's the great thing about AmpliTube is you get hundreds of stomp boxes. Is it hundreds?
power grid.
It's literally hundreds of stomp boxes. So you want, Chris, you want the MXR Phase 90? Ooh. We got it.
Actually,
okay.
I should point out something. It's really kind of cool. First of all, you can go to ikmultimedia.com and you can download AmpliTube CS for free. So you can just use an amp for free. So you might as well do that. But the CS stands for Custom Shop, and from there you can actually buy a model of an MXR Phase 90 for $5 instead of $100 in hardware or whatever. So you can buy just exactly what you want. You can go shopping in the app, kind of like you would in a music app.
While we're talking about,
Or you can get the whole thing. Sorry, one real quick.
Hang on.
Or you can get the max. And the interesting thing I find, let's say, listening to Tom and the way he works, is he has, well, first of all, both you guys are saying, like, you guys, because you work with a lot of different people, you have to have, as a mixing engineer, everything, because you don't know what people are going to be using, right? So you have it, and when you do have, let's say, within, we're talking here about IK, if you have the max versions called Max, AmpliTube Max, Total Studio Max, you have everything whether you know what it is or not. And then when you're working, you can pull it up. You said hundreds. When you have Max, you have hundreds, and you go, well, let me just see what this echo, this delay, this tape echo sounds like, and then you discover things. Is that correct? Is that
Correct.
how you work?
Correct. So on this particular one, again, I have actually had presets set up, and I use the stomp box on this particular one in the AmpliTube plugin, which is this stomp box right here. And again, it's just a distortion box, and it's just a flavor that I really like. So again, I'm going to play the bass without it in, and then when I turn it on, it just adds a bit more of the growl, and then here's that track. You know, it just adds a nice kind of low mid-range bite and growl to it that I really like. And because that distortion wasn't enough, I felt, well, let me just pummel it. You know, and that's what I'm doing with the SSL British channel. I'm just spanking I'm giving it a good spanking. I want it to really just stand up and be one level. You know, and again, I was trying to turn the bass. I was trying to just turn it into a vibe, and in the track, it's going to sound like this. You know, speaks really loud, really clear through the track. And again, I just love that AmpliTube plugin. It's got so many stomp boxes. You know, it's so much fun to play with. So it's one of my little secret weapons that I use.
And Chris, you were saying like you wouldn't be opposed to using a guitar effect on a vocal.
No. But what I was going to ask you was that in the Max pack that you have now, what have we added here for 2020? What's in the new collection? Is the tape saturators are new, right? So it's a pretty large plethora of plugins. So if you just look at the IK window, if you just look at the IK plugin, just give me a quick overview. You know, people walk in the room and say, hey, well, what are all those? Is that Gardner Cole back there again? Hey, buddy. Hi. So there is a quite amount of EQs you have, a quite amount of limiters. So it's a pretty large bundle of stuff that's happening right now.
Well, the way it works is there's the T-RackS series,
Right.
and that's where you get all your outboard gear, the EQs, the compressors, limiters, the saturators, the tape emulations. And then you have AmpliTube, that's where you have amps, stomp boxes, rack effects. Then you also have Lursen Mastering Console, which is a standalone mastering analog emulation. And there's, so those are in terms of effects, those are the main ones. And you have...
so you did a thing with Gavin.
Yes.
Cool.
A recreation, and that's what
that.
it is there. And this is great too because it's a lot of fun.
Stretch? No,
It's a mix. It's kind of like the One in the sense that it has EQ and compression, and the rig that he has there, it's a model of his entire chain. So it actually, you have how it sounds through his rig, not just each individual component, but how it is together as one animal. And of course, this can be used just for mastering, standalone, or on your mix bus, but it can also just be used on drum bus or anything because it's another effect. And
absolutely,
do you guys know who
it's
Gavin
another
Lursen
color
is?
in the chain.
Anyone know who Gavin Lursen is? So Gavin Lursen is a mastering engineer who was Doug Sack's assistant. So when I'd go over and master way back before you were all born, it was Doug Sachs, and Gavin was the young kid, the assistant, and now he's moved on to take the reins of that. So just a quick history lesson there. So another question for our people out there. When you come in and you don't have any IK plugins right now, if you want to jump into the deep water and get the Max Pack, what kind of numbers are we talking about?
Well, here's how it works, basically, because there's a product we have that's called this Total Studio bundle. We have two, and Max means it's just packed with everything. Everything up until a certain point. And then there's new plugins that come in after that, and then eventually there's an update. Right now we're at Total Studio Max 2, and it doesn't have the tape machines yet, but it has Lursen Mastering Console, it has a lot of the T-RackS stuff, and it has AmpliTube. But it's a great place to start because, of course, you save a lot of money. You probably save, I think, like a third or a fourth when you get it all together. And I think it's a good way to work because, for instance, like I was saying, you can get the custom shop, you can get it for free. You can get T-RackS for free, CS, you can get all the individual starting points. You might as well get those. And then you can cherry pick things, but the problem is that if you know what you want. Like if you get AmpliTube CS and if you've owned pedals, I collect pedals, so I could go get a Phase 90 or a Phase 100 if I want to get Tony Banks keyboard sound. And I know what I want, but a lot of times you don't know. Maybe you never heard that I've never heard that pedal that you used on that track before in hardware. And so when you get the Max, it's kind of like, look, I have a huge collection, and then when I'm working, I'll experiment. I'll pull
No,
up
that's
different
exactly.
things.
I've never
It's
seen
good
that
for
pedal.
that. I
I've
like-
never seen that pedal. It was just, again, I was experimenting and trying to come up with something.
Right.
And that's what I came up with. But of course, all of this stuff would be useless if you didn't have something to listen to it out of.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we should probably move on to talk about the monitors that we're using.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I just wanted, like, if we're going to walk and say, hey, Dave, give me the price on the plug-in pack I can get started with. I just want to get a little price
Chris
point
is looking
here.
to get a number.
Get a number
What
out of
is the total? It's like 1,000. Is it for like about $3,000 worth of with the software?
for everything.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
everything up to that point, and then
Wow.
newer stuff you have
I
to
mean-
buy separate until the next version or whatever.
1, 2.
The starter pack is free. It's kind of like here's a little taste. Here.
It's all running on batteries, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody's behind the curtain.
So anyway, jump in the water. So right now they can go do the test drive they want. They can cherry pick the ones they want, and then that'll get them a great price. Is there any kind of NAMM special for the weekend to give them some incentives to go up there, Dave? Oh yeah, just checking. So anyway, there's probably some incentives because NAMM 2020, I guarantee it. But go cherry pick the stuff you want, right?
Well, the other thing is this is actually a really good suggestion. I'm just giving you all the, so first of all, not only can you get the CS version for free, but you can try out most of the plugins, if not all of them, for 14 days. So you could literally mix and master your album for free if you can do it within 2 weeks. And if you can't do it within 2 weeks, something's wrong, right? So, then you really
come
know.
to us.
Then that's the thing. I mean, once you use it and you incorporate it into your system, you know what works for you. These guys talk about using plugins that they're familiar with, and it makes sense because if they're used to a layout. But for me, I find other plugins like for instance we have one called Equal, and it's really cool because you can kind of just use it to shape really fast. And sometimes when I look at a Neve, because I never owned a Neve model of a Neve, I'm like, wait, what is this? How does this work? What's the deal? But it's great to experiment because I'm like, well, this just sounds. A Neve is a legendary analog console, but those other tools like the One, where everything isn't exactly named like anything in hardware, but you're just like, well, what's the Air going to do? Oh, okay. And so try it, and then you know for yourself exactly how you can use it, and get tips from Tom. And we've done actually also another little thing, a little tip from me. So I've worked with Tom and Chris. I haven't done this with Chris yet, but I'm going to hit him up after the show. We did presets with Tom. And these presets are really good starting points. So he'll do, let's say, like a vocal chain preset or a vocal setting on the British channel. And of course, an engineer's got to listen. It depends on what's coming in, and you're going to tweak it. So you have to do the rest of the work. It's kind of like what you were saying, where you get a head start and then you do the finishing.
It's just to get you started.
Yeah,
Here.
and half the time for me, if I'm just like working and I just want to like work on the rest of the song, but I want the drums to sound better than just flat, and I just put all of his presets, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm done. Because it sounds that good. I'm like, well, it needed those particular settings. So and you get those for free. Those come with the pack. But also, that's another reason why you want to get the Max version, because all the presets, especially the chain ones, might include different effects that you used. And if you have the Max, you have all the ones that would be used. We did them with Dave Way, Richard Cheeky, Nick Davis, and coming soon, Chris Lord-Alge collection.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's briefly talk about the monitors. First of all, Tom, so you evolved from, we live in the same place. We live in Miami, and we don't get to see Chris as much unless we visit him in LA. But so they're on both coasts. But so I see you a lot, and I brought over the iLoud, the original one.
The
How did
original
you use
iLoud,
that?
which is the little kind of portable device. That was my first introduction, which was great. I still use it to this day for traveling. It's awesome sound on a little monitor. Again, for listening at low volumes and critical listening environment, to get a critical listen. So I always try to have a couple of different sets of monitors because I want to have a real world perspective. So that little iLoud one is being a great travel monitor. It's good I can work off of it on the road. Then you brought me over the iLoud micro monitors, and I was like, okay, now this is totally different. So the iLoud micro monitors actually replaced my Sony mini disc boombox that I used for 20 years. I was very impressed with how they sound.
What did you use those for?
So they're, again, low-level alternative monitorings for me. So those I started to listening when they're getting near the end of my mix to check my mix at lower volume, on monitors, again, that aren't, $7,000 monitors or that aren't, the daily monitors that I'm using every day, because I want to have a third set that are more like what everybody else is listening to, more real world.
And is that how you use them as well, Chris, you were saying?
You're only as good as how you can hear. So no matter what you're used to, you need to have a B station, a car to listen to. But a lot of times when you're home and you're checking your Facebook and your Instagram and all those emails the boys are sending you, it's nice to check the mixes on something that's not in the room you're making the music in a default alternate place. So I find that I'm making mix notes on the iLouds at home, go back and make some tweaks. I'm like, oh, or I go, wow, I'm pretty good at this. And I get excited about it. I goes, wow, I really dig how that sounds. So it shows me another impression of what's happening. Go fuck yourself. Jesus Christ.
Okay, and one last thing. So that's awesome. Okay, so and thank you all for staying. So let me ask you. So Tom, and then finally you got the MTMs. And what is it about these that you like and that you recommend?
The MTMs. So I had the iLoud micro monitors on my console. Then you brought me over the MTMs. The MTMs. The great thing I like about them, first of all, is the bottom end is ridiculous. I just thought, how are you getting this type of bottom end out of that small a monitor? And one of the ways that they're able to do that is this calibration mode that these MTMs have. So what you do is, thank you, Chris. This is the MTM. These are little gems. So as you can see by Chris displaying the MTM, it's an absolute gem. So you basically. You take the monitor, you place them in the listening position, and they come with the microphone. You put the microphone where you're going to be sitting, okay? You plug it into the one speaker, you hit the button, R2-D2 comes out and makes all this weird noise, right? You do it to the next speaker, again, R2-D2 does it again, and as soon as you calibrate it to your room, that literally tunes the speakers to your room. And then it's the voodoo. I don't know how it does it, but it literally tunes the speakers for your room. And then these monitors sound incredible. So these monitors, this right here, I have two of them on my console, left and right. And again, I probably do now about 50 or 60% of my mixing through these at lower volumes. Thank you, IK, for saving my hearing so that I can hear in the future. Because now I no longer am listening at stun all day. Exactly.
All right, and thank you, Tom and Chris. Lord-Alge.
Thank you, Dave, for having us here.